Game Boy Advance Video is such a cool concept. Back then there were so many shows based on games, and of course games based on TV shows or movies, so having the option of playing those shows on the same device you used to play the respective games is one heck of a feature if you ask me. The 3DS and the Wii come to mind since they were the first consoles I used that had video streaming apps. But going back to the GameCube, if you wanted to play video on it, you'd look no further than the very functional port of MPlayer. MPlayer is a media player for the most popular codecs at the time. I say at the time because this port hasn't seen an update since 2011, and that's precisely what I'm going to change. Updating MPlayer is quite a problem because of the very limited memory of the GameCube. Luckily, what we really want is to have access to more storage devices such as the GC Loader's SD card, so I can play video without having to buy an SD card adapter for the memory card port, which I understand is currently the only way to use MPlayer on the GameCube. So the goal here is to get the 2011 source code for this homebrew app compiling with the latest dev kit so we can use libogc2 and implement GC Loader support. Right off the bat, if we try to compile it, we're met with a pretty large amount of errors. Each error is basically the result of changes in the building tools. They're surprisingly not hard to fix. Here's an example of an error and how it's fixed. The only real issue is not knowing how long it will take to solve all the errors. Even after successfully building it, there were many failed attempts that look like this. But eventually, once every little thing was accounted for, it started to boot up correctly. You can look at the GitHub page to find out just how many changes were required. So moving on, about 3 days later, I finally had a usable build of MPlayer that is 100% compatible with my GameCube's optical drive emulator, the Cube ODE.
You Rangers are wising up!
You mean we're winning, huh?
That's what you think!
And while it certainly is a rather small version of MPlayer, we still have access to some of the best codecs out there. As long as the encodes are within reason, they'll play properly. Usually, DVD copies created with MakeMKV will play well enough, but DVDs with a high bitrate will almost always need the audio to be re-encoded to a faster codec to prevent slowdowns.
Pop Secret popcorn, so irresistible you can't keep it a secret.
I didn't want this to be just about getting MPlayer up and running, so I decided to add a few new features as well. One such feature is the ability to display your videos in 240p, a rather niche option but one that gives you a couple advantages, such as flicker-free visuals, danger lacing, and giving your anime a BCD type of look that will still be miles better since it's only downscaling vertically. But you do miss out on interlacing, so you won't get that smooth 60 FPS look on older shows, and because the frame rate is slightly lower in 240p mode, video won't synchronize properly, causing a slight judder in order to stay in sync.
Of course, the Angel Grove Mall.
Good call, Ashley!
One of the main reasons I wanted to have a proper media player on the GameCube is to be able to play music videos. There was just one problem. I didn't want to always manually select a specific video. I wanted them to play in a shuffled way so that it feels sort of like a TV channel. MPlayer does not have a shuffle option, so I found this to be a crucial addition. Shuffling is enabled by editing the configuration file, and it's also effective on music files, which is nice. On the subject of music playback, nearly all of my collection is comprised of the iTunes Plus format, which are high-quality AAC files. MPlayer is the only way to get those files to play on the GameCube, while my physical collection is readily available for making compressed, lossless copies if necessary, and they will also play fine on the GameCube. Despite this, I really want to be able to display the cover art, as well as some other info like the artist and album names. MPlayer doesn't offer this, so I consider my options. Adding more stuff to MPlayer is quite risky, especially now that it's in a stable state. There were other pending issues as well, and so I eventually settled on a much more interesting solution. What if we could run WeMC on the GameCube? WeMC is like this huge graphical application for the Wii. It has no chance of being possible on the GameCube. However, I only need the music playing aspect of it, and because my own version of WeMC was already dedicated to improving the graphical interface to include things like embedded artwork, it's far too useful to not have it on the GameCube. So by stripping WeMC of all video playback and everything else that isn't needed, as well as reducing the stream cache to 1 MB, we now have a very light version of WeMC perfect for GameCube. You can display artwork on popular formats such as MP3, AAC, WMA, FLAC, the ever-reliable OGG Vorvis, and everyone's favorite, AIFF.
Breathtaking 3D adventure. Help crop through 50 amazing levels.
It benefits It benefits from cherry-picked updates from FFmpeg, so it will play certain codecs a lot better, such as the ADX format used by many games, or the Wii's BRSTM format, including its 3DS and Wii U variants. As you can see, the interface is much faster when compared to mPlayer. And the lack of the Wii Remote's pointer forced me to further change WiiMC so that it's possible to do more player-specific things with the GameCube controller. For example, to seek forward or back, you press and hold the X button and use the D-pad. If you press up or down while holding X, it will pause playback. Likewise, the L trigger will seek to the beginning, and the R trigger will end playback and skip to the next file if it's on the playlist. It's all done by holding X as long as the audio player is currently active. And one of my personal favorite additions to WiiMC is that you can make use of its Netflix-style screensaver while listening to music. Just point a folder with pictures in it, enable the banner screensaver, and they will display in a shuffled way. I found it necessary to go a step further and optimize the GUI so that it takes even less memory to display all textures. Take the background image for example. It's a high-resolution JPEG that's been heavily compressed to be under 20 kilobytes, but once the GUI processes the texture, it becomes a 1 megabyte memory hog. So instead, I got rid of the JPEG step, resample the image as 320 by 240, and store it in the GameCube's CMPR format, which produces a lower quality texture, but also takes less memory. I then have the GUI display it directly with a full screen scale. This results in a near identical look that barely takes up any memory. Moreover, when displaying cover art as well as the banner screensaver, they will now use the RGB 565 format, as long as they come from JPEG files. JPEG also has the advantage of being able to decode at lower resolutions, so I have a system in place that will downscale in integer steps if necessary. The Wii's Photos channel uses a very similar approach, if not identical. This ensures that the vast majority of pictures are compatible, but because the file is currently read entirely into memory before it can be decoded, there's still a harsh limit depending on the file size. That's it for WiiMC. Let's go back to mPlayer and talk a bit more about its video playback. One of the cooler aspects of mPlayer is that it uses a technique called tiled rendering to get more pixels to display on the screen. Because of that, it's possible for DVDs to play at their exact resolution. And while DVD playback is a bit lacking on higher bitrate 30fps videos, you can still make good use of it for movies, especially considering that many DVDs for movies are soft teleassigned, so they keep their original frame rate intact, making them very easy for the GameCube to play. I love movies, so being able to access my collection on the GameCube without needing to downgrade the resolution is quite handy. Storage is still pretty tight. I currently use a 64GB SD card, so picking the right movies to keep on the GameCube is pretty challenging. Let me give you a quick look at my DVD VHS collection. Pretty cool, huh? Growing up, I had access to a sort of VHS heaven, and though most of these are gone now, I managed to preserve my absolute favorites. In any case, I wanted my GameCube to become the ideal time capsule, and I believe I finally have the tools to make it happen. I hope people will enjoy having easier access to mPlayer and the convenience of WiiMC on the GameCube. By the way, I still have one more media-related homebrew to show off, but the inclusion of WiiMC took much longer than expected, and since this one is kind of a different story, I think it's best to leave it for next time. Thanks for watching! Like, comment, and subscribe! Like, comment, and subscribe! Like, comment, and subscribe! Like, comment, subscribe. Do it. Do it. Do it. You have to do it. You have to do it, man. Please do it.
There you go, son. Now get out of here. You're bothering me.